Hello and welcome to Frame the Beat podcast, the show where we zoom in on the music industry from a fresh new angle. I'm your host, Dan Reed, and in this episode, I'm beyond excited to welcome the multi-award winning royal and entertainment photographer, Samir Hussein. Renowned for his timeless imagery, Samir's work has been published worldwide. His keen eye for detail and signature sophistication make him a top choice for media outlets across the globe. Some of his iconic royal photographs have been hailed as the best ever taken, and his portfolio spans everything from Glastonbury and the BAFTAs to the Cannes Film Festival and exclusive VIP shoots. But how did he reach the top of his game? It's time to find out. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Very well, Dan. Good
Nice
to be talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's one of those things that I've started this podcast in the last 3 or 4 months about people that, 25 years in the industry. And it's weird because I don't really know you in that sense on face to face. Like the first time we met was last year in the pit at the Liam Gallagher, John Squire gig.
That's right.
But we've always spoke online, like nice pleasantries on Instagram or something like that, because I've been following your stuff for ages. And I think that's good with other photographers just to keep chatting. I'm one of those that, I like speaking to other photographers and looking at work. I'm not one of those that just buries their head in the sand, just cares about what they do. I like looking around and getting inspired and things like that. So thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
What's been going on with you in the last how's your 2025 started?
It's been really busy. Last year was a really strange year for me, sort of photographing the royals, because we had the King announcing he had cancer and Kate with the cancer diagnosis as well. So that was a really, no one predicted that at all. And that sort of, threw us all really. And it meant a lot less work in terms of the royals. Frankly, I was busy sort of shooting the other stuff that I shoot. But so coming into this year, it's good because it's kind of back to a full schedule. We've been done quite a few engagements with Kate. Last week I was with the King and Queen in Belfast. So on the royal front, it's really busy, and with everything else going on, it's looking like it's going to be a really good year. So yeah, really enjoying it.
And obviously, what we do as well with shooting shows, the beginning of the year is normally quite quiet anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
it doesn't get going yet, does it? So
no, I mean, I think it really gets going in in the summer, like the festival season, and we got some. I know we've been sort of mentioning it before, but some big gigs this summer. The Oasis gig coming up. Last time we were in the pit was for Liam Gallagher. Hopefully we'll be in the pit again shooting Oasis.
I hope so. We don't know any restrictions yet or anything like that. So
no.
I've mentioned it to my sort of editor and all that about wanting to do it, but it's one
crossed.
of those. I'll take any. Obviously, you want to do the first one, don't you? But to get the coverage, for me, I'll take the September one. Everyone's done it, so you know what I mean.
No,
so
it'd just be great to shoot them again, wouldn't it? It'd be a decent sense of buzz. So that's fingers crossed.
I don't think you'll ever get them come together, though. I don't think they'll come together with that's the shot we all want.
Yeah.
They'll never do that. Okay, so the way we do it and the sort of process of this, I'd just like to talk to you about how you got into photography, and then we'll go through all the bits and pieces. I've got some notes, got some questions from viewers, and then if you're watching on YouTube and Spotify, I'll put up some pictures of Sam's work as we're going along, because there's some great work there and some iconic images, and we'll talk about those as well. So let's start at the beginning. What got you into photography? Anything that inspired you at a younger age?
Yeah, well, I was very lucky actually, because my father was a photographer. Sadly, he passed away last year, but he was a big sort of inspiration growing up. Even though didn't when I was younger, I was kind of surrounded by photography, but it wasn't something I necessarily wanted to go into. He never really pushed me into it in any way, but he used to photograph sort of back in the 60s. He used to photograph a lot of showbiz stuff, and got some amazing access. He shot some of the stills on the Bond films and worked with Steve McQueen and some of the huge artists at the time. Everything from like the Stones to Bob Marley and all these kind of artists from the 60s and 70s. And then he went into shoot, a lot like my career. There's that was a big influence, obviously. But just before Diana came on the scene, he sort of switched to photographing the royals. So photographed, the royals sort of throughout the 80s and 90s when Diana was on the scene. So I grew up with all that. I grew up with sort of surrounded by all these incredible photos, and just growing up, got to know, I guess, a bit about the industry without taking like any kind of huge interest. And then when I sort of went to college and uni, I was kind of interested in photography, but at the time I was more interested in the writing side of things. So I actually studied journalism at uni. Went to Southampton, actually, where where you are.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Which was
when was
fun.
that? What year was that?
So I graduated in 2000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Long time ago now.
Yes.
Well,
Let's not.
yeah.
I was before you, mate, graduated. So let's not talk about it.
Yeah. But that was good, and I actually did a bit of photography as part of the course, and really liked it. And then when I finished uni, got a job for a while working for the Press Association, working as a sports journalist for them up in Leeds. But I wanted to move down to London. That's where my friends and everything were. So after a year, moved down to London, and with the view of doing some sort of freelance journalism. But to tie me over, I got some work just working for a celebrity entertainment photo agency just in their office, and started working in there, and just sort of got hooked on the photography side of stuff. So started learning more about how the industry works sort of from the inside. I was, quite into I knew how to take pictures because I'd done some stuff with my dad and stuff, and this was just the start of the digital age. So I just slowly started to get more into the photography side of stuff rather than writing side of stuff, and then I started going out shooting. I never looked back. I was just really into music. That was the sort of passion. So I went out, started shooting small gigs, getting whatever access I could, and it took off from there. And from there, I then got a job with Getty, actually working as on their picture desk. So I then moved to Getty as staff, and I was working there as an editor, and then kind of used that while I was there to sort of carry on going out shooting gigs, shooting as much as I could in my spare time, and just sort of built that up over time until after a couple of years I left and went freelance full time shooting and never looked back.
Can I just go back to your father? Like, my God, you two must have some. If you put it together, the timeline of the royal family photography must be mental.
Yeah,
that is amazing. So when did he start? Was it around the early 80s for the wedding
things like that? Was it? It was the late. It's in the 70s he started doing stuff. So before Diana was on the scene, so he started doing stuff with the Queen and Prince Charles. So yeah, his collection is like amazing.
Do you own the copyright to that because it's passed down to you, or does it? So you've got the copyright to that as well as
the family have the copyright. So I mean that's one of the things I think I learned from him was to sort of keep the copyright. He always shot for himself and kept the copyright, and that's sort of been my sort of business strategy, is to sort of
that was one of my questions.
You do occasionally do like an assignment where the client will want the copyright or need it for licensing or whatever, but I'd say 99% of the stuff I do I keep the copyright, and and then I get I work with I've got a contract with Getty Images, so I get the royalty. They sell my pictures, so I get the royalties from that.
Is your dad's stuff on Getty as well?
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's one of my questions at the end that I ask a lot of the people about. We'll get to it, but for me, it's quite important as we get older, and you've seen it. Plus, it's really important, and I think for you because you've seen it with your father.
Yeah.
How it works.
That was invaluable because I think when you're sort of starting off, you want to, you want to get the money in however you can. So a lot of people, they take the shift and give up their copyright, and they just want the easy money, and that's absolutely fine. And you want the guaranteed money, but I could see the sort of benefit of what he had done, which is build like this huge library of high profile people with the Royals, and the sort of the long term benefits of that, and keeping the copyright. So that was like from the beginning what I started to do, and it is tough in the beginning because you're shooting small events that doesn't bring in necessarily a lot of money, but over time you build this extensive library, and as you get more established and you start getting better access, and then suddenly that can be great, and then the money starts flowing in, and the benefits of having like a good library on somewhere big. I know you work with Shutterstock and stuff, but these big agencies is they can still, your stock stuff from years ago still sells. I remember during COVID when probably lost a year of work where just wasn't shooting anything. No, there's nothing to bring the money in, but I was still getting royalties and the sales from my library of royals and stuff, and that sort of got me through, just having that archive to get me through. So that's just sort of the way I've gone about it, and that was from learning from my dad really, and seeing the benefits of what he had done.
It's funny. It's what you said about that. I've got a friend that works for Getty. Just said that he's got a photo from Amy Winehouse from the Isle of Wight Festival, which is an okay photo.
Yeah,
that he just made so much. It just
Yeah.
always just ticks along because
Yeah.
there wasn't that many. She obviously passed away early.
Yeah.
If you've got an iconic, you must be the same. You must have some of those iconic photos of people that passed. That
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when people pass away, I photographed Amy Winehouse a lot, and she definitely, she comes up all the time on the sales reports. You see her name. She's she is seen as a music icon now, and you'd still see her pictures everywhere, music publications and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's great when you see stuff from 10, 15 years ago still coming up every month on
the old statement.
Yeah.
So okay, there's a couple of like little questions because you've gone over it a little bit, but obviously you wanted to know to make a career was for your dad to help that a lot, and I think that's amazing. I'd love my two girls to they've got a little bit of an interest. What about your kids? Are they quite young, aren't they?
They're quite young. I mean, my son's just turned 9, and then I've got two girls, 6 and 3.
They've got a little bit of the family tradition, mate. You've got to,
Well, yeah, we'll see. God knows what's going to happen with the industry over the next sort of 20 years, where we'll be, and we'll all be,
AI'd.
Photography. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit worrying, but yeah, they've got an interest. Yeah. It's certainly my son. I mean, they've got like little sort of cameras, and they love going around taking pictures. We'll see.
I think the AI thing as well is that I was at a premiere last night of a film, and I was working just doing behind the scenes stuff, and we were talking with I was talking with copywriters, and they're obviously getting hit with ChatGPT stuff and all that all the time, and all that. I think for us at the moment, events. I mean, if you have to AI an event in the future, it's going to be mental. But I'm embracing AI with Photoshop. I mean, some of the things you can do with Lightroom and Photoshop with the AI of taking things away, and in the past you'd be cloning stuff out and trying to get it. I mean, it's crazy. So I'm embracing that. I mean, I think we have to for
we do. I mean, it's with the kind of stuff I do, certainly for Getty, the kind of like editorial for Getty and stuff, it's very strict. We're not allowed to use AI at all.
That's what I was going to say. That they don't. You've got to keep it as real as possible.
So you've got to keep it as real as possible. So there is that. It's distinguished from the kind of AI stuff, and what the upside of that is what people know, that when they see that picture, it is real, right?
Yeah, you can put your own style on, though, don't you? You can put your own. You can tweak it. Which we all do. Yeah,
you have your editing style, and you tweak it and stuff. But obviously, you're not allowed to take, for the kind of like editorial stuff, you're not allowed to take out stuff and add anything, or use these AI tools, and that's quite strict. And I think that's good because
I agree.
There is there's the AI, and then there's the real deal, where that the stuff you're shooting, is real. And I guess from that point of view, hopefully AI won't have too much of an impact. Can't really take away what we're doing.
No, I can't do events, surely. It's
No,
gonna be completely
no,
and a
no.
crowd and yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
let's go back. Let's go. Just there's a couple of things. So you started working for Getty. What was like the first live gig you shot that you went? I know obviously you've seen your dad and all
So
that, but it's something you go, yeah, I'm in this, man.
yeah. So for the first gig I did sort of professionally, which is I was looking at that the other day. What was the first thing when I was like, when you said we were going to be on this and you would go back over my career, and I looked back, it was actually a gig with Brett Anderson.
Okay, Suede.
It wasn't Suede. He played a gig with Bernard Butler.
Yeah.
They were in a band called The Tears for a while, so it's a bit like a little side thing from Suede. But I think that was in Hammersmith, and that was in 2005.
He doesn't like photography because I've shot him a few times. I'm sure he's quite weird with photographers. He's not great.
He was. I mean, like, this was my first gig, so I didn't really know what to expect. But he was, he came out in sunglasses, and he was like the
He's
leather
great to
coat,
shoot.
and he was like, fantastic to shoot. And I mean, you know what it's like, especially when you first go out shooting and you're there, you got the crowd behind you, you're in the pit, and it's just such a buzz. And I
still get it now. Do you? I'm shooting The Darkness tonight in Portsmouth.
Okay. Oh,
and I love. They're great to shoot.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to the gig.
Yeah. No, you always get it. It's remained one of my things. There's certain kinds of photography, and like you go to the job and you're like, can be a bit of a slog, but photography, I always get the buzz. When you've got the excitement of the crowd behind you, and you're
the lights go off,
touching distance from the artist.
Yeah.
It's like, it's brilliant. And when you're shooting a really big gig, or you're at, I don't know, something like Glastonbury for a headliner or something, and it's got that energy about it, and it's a great feeling.
How big it is, don't you? I mean, did you do Taylor Swift this year?
Not this
last year. You've done her before.
I've done her before. Yeah. And those big gigs, you just get such a buzz, and they're going to be picked up everywhere. And when you get being in the pits is just so exciting, I think. And then when you step away and you download your picture, and if you've got like a great shot, then
you're buzzing, aren't you?
It's just the best feeling.
I saw Taylor. I took my daughter. I became a Swiftie after last year because my daughter listened to it all the time, and I thought the show was brilliant, and we had a great seat, and in Cardiff. But all I kept thinking to go, I'd love to shoot this gig. Yeah. I'd love to be, because you've done you've done Lady Gaga exclusively, haven't you? And she's one of my bucket list to photograph.
She's amazing.
Amazing,
yeah. I mean, I guess that's one of the problems. I get that as well, is when you go and watch gigs, without the cameras, and you're always sort of, when it's a good gig, you're always like, like that would make a great photo. You're always looking at it from that point of view, aren't you?
And then you see someone else's that was there, like, Kevin Mansour, is it Kevin?
Kevin Mansour,
and you see his and you go, oh man, that looks so good. I'd love to be that. We just want that shot. But that's great. And you feel the same as me, and
Definitely.
I think with photography, like when you come off from shooting a festival or a gig that you like, I'm a massive Oasis fan, so I've shot Oasis a few times and Liam loads of times. And when you come away and you just like look on the back and go, yes, that's the one I want. Even if you think I've got something in my portfolio as well, it's something that's a bit different. There is a buzz on that, isn't there? There is.
Oh, that's one of the best things about being a photographer. There's lots of highs and lows, but that feeling you get when you look back, you download your picture, and you're like, yeah, I've cracked it. That is.
There's a Taylor Swift one you've done that is amazing. I love that one. I'll put it up now. It's the one that looks quite smoky. I love that. That's a really good shot. When was that?
Yeah, so that was from the previous tour before this one. That was at Wembley, and that was just as she first came out. Just stepped out, and that was like the first shot, atmospheric. I love that shot. It's great.
So you started with Getty. How did you get involved in that? Because obviously, if people don't know, it's an image library sort of site that if you want, anyone can go on there, can't they? I mean, and buy it. But mostly press buy it, I can imagine. Isn't it press and magazines and things like that, isn't it? Or
press and magazines. I mean, to be honest, I mean, pictures get used in so many ways. I mean,
Yeah.
they still use it for not just editorial, but for
Yeah.
commercial and
Yeah. Yeah.
advertising and stuff. But yeah, mainly
How
sort
did
of
you
like.
get to them? How did you get with Getty and decide to go?
Yeah, well, so I was working for this smaller agency, which got sort of bought up, but they were called All Action, and they were an entertainment agency, and I was doing stuff for them for about a year or so, and I was looking like, and by that stage, I've sort of decided that actually I want to go into photography rather than journalism, with shooting some stuff, and Getty with a big, with a big agency. Um, so I sort of knew a few people that work there. So just approached them, heard that there was a job going on the picture desk. By that time, I'd picked up, got some experience with editing and stuff. Managed to get an interview, and yeah, got managed to work there. But I knew it was just a natural progression. Really, they were the sort of, this was the start of the digital age, and they were sort of, at the forefront of that. They sort of started at the digital age, and they were buying lots of different agencies and getting bigger and bigger all the time. And just sort of for my progression within the industry, it just seemed like a natural move, and to get in there. And what was good about it is, I was working on the picture desk, working with some really big, established photographers, working with some amazing editors. So it was great for learning, and I was there on the inside, so it made it a bit easier to sort of start shooting from them. I had to sort of go out and do like a small gig and sort of
That's what I was
try
going
and
to say. What was your assignments? Was it mostly music, or did you have to do like the news sort of ones as well, like going to
no.
courts, outside courts, and things like that?
Well, at that stage, it was all in my. So I was staff working as an editor, and I would just say, look, if there's an opportunity, can I go and shoot out a gig? And they were like, they obviously they got people shooting, but eventually I'd speak to them, and they're like, okay, what do you want to go and shoot? I'd look up the gigs and say, can I go and shoot this one? No one else is covering it. They said, go on then, go and shoot it. And at that stage, I was staff, so I was still shooting under the sort of, wasn't getting any money for that because I was still sort of staff. But then, I shot a few gigs, and they were like, oh yeah, your stuff's really good. And this was all done in my spare time. And then, if they needed someone to go and shoot like a small film premiere because no one else was shooting it, I'll go out and shoot it. Just like small jobs, and just taking every opportunity I could. But it's really up to me what I did, because it was in my spare time, and I was like focused on music at the time. And then off the back of that, because I sort of got my own gear, I then, and was doing it in my own time, I then got like a contributor byline. And a contributor byline is, as opposed to being a staff photographer, where obviously you're working for them and they keep the copyright. As a contributor byline, it means I keep the copyright and I get royalties from those. So they would sell the images, and I'd get a percentage of royalties from that. So that was sort of like really, really key for me. So then I could go out, shoot stuff in my own time, and get some money coming in. And then started going out, like sort of, my access my dad had. I was able to sort of get into some of the smaller Royal events.
Did that help, by the way? Would your dad have the contacts that you could sort of, it's
It
not who you
helps.
know,
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
know,
I
who
mean,
you
it
know.
definitely sort of helped. I could go like under his name when he couldn't shoot something, and shoot some smaller engagements. So it definitely helped, just knowing how to approach it. How to get the right people to talk to. But with that as well, but there's also a downside to that, because my dad was a sort of very established photographer within that thing, and he was sort of, not like, there was still a big crossover when he was still working and I was still working, but he was coming towards the end of his career. And I think then a lot of the other photographers and a lot of people saw me coming along, and they were like, oh, he's only here because of his dad. So you then had to really sort of prove yourself, that
Yeah.
you were a good photographer in your own right and that you deserve to be there. Um, so it's definitely a big help, being able to just to get your foot in the door. But then you have that battle to sort of win people over, and you need to be good enough and build up your own relationships to start getting the
Was there
access down the line.
Was there ever a time that you and your dad were together at an event? You
Yeah,
know,
there
like
was.
pushing out the way, like, no, come on,
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
like,
Well, there was. There's a few years like when I first
yeah,
started going on tours and stuff. I went on some trips with him, which was sort of invaluable having his experience. And yeah, he was always, he was obviously so experienced, and I was new. But as I started to get more experience and I started to become a better photographer, then it definitely got sort of more competitive in a good way.
yeah.
But yeah, it was good. So we were working alongside each other for a few years. There was a crossover there, which was really nice.
And was there ever a time where it was a bit like, what are you doing, son? Come on, move back a bit. Did you ever look at each other's shots and go, see, I've got that, Was there a bit of
I
like
think there wasn't any
competitive?
kind of like. There's definitely competitiveness. Like when we'd come back and you'd shoot a job and then you'd both be sat there editing. You look over each other's shoulder and showing each other's pictures and like, oh, you got that? Yeah, but look what I got. And a little bit
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
friendly competitiveness, definitely. Yeah.
I'm sure he was proud of you though as well, where you got to for how young, you were coming through, etc. as well. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, he was really proud, and I think he never pushed me to go into photography. If anything, he kind of discouraged me. But then when he could see that I'd sort of gone into the industry off my own back, sort of found a love for photography and was, that's what I wanted to do. Then he became like really really supportive, and yeah, I mean, I think he was so pleased that in the end that I was sort of following on in his footsteps.
yeah,
It was really nice. Yeah.
definitely. Uh, right. So when I look at your stuff, one of the things that, again, I work for agencies, but I've not got to do what you do with the premieres. Now, I'm a
Mm,
massive movie fan, so
mm.
I love. You can see in the background, I'm a
Yeah,
big
I can
Star Wars
see.
fan, and
Yeah.
Back to the Future. I'm a bit of a nerd, and Jaws is my favourite film. Blah blah blah,
Okay.
and all that.
Okay.
Um, but I love the movie premiere stuff. I mean, if
Mm,
if if I could, because I'm a big portrait photographer, as you know, with a lot of musicians and DJs and all that. But I think something that I'd like
mm.
to do is shoot more sort of film stars, like that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. I love what Vanity Fair, when they come up with their Oscar,
Yeah.
sort of those things. I love all that, Annie Leibovitz, sort of that Mark Selger sort of stuff. I love all that stuff.
Sure.
But I love your premiere stuff, and what I love about your premiere stuff is that you obviously shoot the normal stuff and thing, but I also like that you actually look at the portrait
Mm,
and you love to change it slightly, to crop it or whatever you do,
mm,
or to make it look
mm,
a portrait. And there's a lot of stuff
mm,
on your site that
mm,
looks like that. They were there, just you and you one on
mm,
one, and I love
mm,
that. I really love
mm.
that, and especially the artists you've shot, Leonardo. I'll put some up, and Gaga and all that. But just one thing I've wanted to sort of speak about and ask you about is a premiere or the Brits or whatever like that. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the process of getting there, the
Yeah.
day, because
Yeah.
it's not, you just don't you don't it's people don't see. And
No.
I spoke to, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of waiting around
Yeah.
and hustle and bustle. So talk to me about the day of going to a premiere, if you know what I mean. What do you
Mm.
how does it start and etc.
Yeah. Well, as you say, I think like with a lot of the stuff we do is I don't think people don't realize is how much time it actually takes just to get that picture. And this is true of whether it be royal jobs or premieres, but a typical so for the big film premieres in London or for the big sort of big red carpet events such as the BAFTAs or Brits, we typically get there like at least an hour before the red carpet starts. Sometimes even earlier. Um, and so you sort of travel into London, into central London, and they have it's all organised by a PR company. So there's about 3 or 4 PR companies that do all the big premieres. So you sort of have a relationship with all of those, and they have a draw system to get your position. So they actually have for a really big premiere they'll have like a first draw, a second draw, and a third draw. And the first draw is sort of big the big photo agencies and the national newspapers. And
So you'd be in that. Getty would be in that the first straw normally, would they?
Yeah, so I'm thankfully in the
Yeah,
first draw.
yeah.
And then
And
they
what
have
does that get you? What does the first straw get you, if you know what I mean?
we'll just get so we don't, what we do is we get there and they say, right, everyone, you have your press cards. You're already accredited, so you already have to apply, and everyone's accredited. They let you through. You get your lanyards. So you're stood on the red carpet with a PR, and the PR says, right, we'll read out all the names from the first draw, and you'll have your press card, and you put it in a bag basically, and they draw it out one by one, and that's the order you go into the pen. So you take up your position. So then you have depending on where you come out, but you have a choice. Do you want to be smack bang in the middle? They tend to do a typical premiere. They tend to do like 3 stops,
Right.
on the red carpet, so you know where the stops are going to be. So you can be like right in front of them.
Ladder? Do you take a ladder, or are you a
I don't.
stander?
I don't take a ladder because I don't tend to need to ladder because I'm not that far back. There tend to be
No, of course, yeah.
three rows. Typically, there'll be 3
Yeah.
rows. So the first row you'll be standing, normally, and that's good because you're eye line. You're on the same level as them, so that's sort of ideal. And in the first row, most of the time, I'll be on ground level in front of them, and you can usually get a good spot in front of one of the places where they're gonna sort of pose up. The second row will be typically on a small stool, one of those foldable stools, and then the third row will have to be a bit higher, so you'll be on a ladder. So the third row, you're pretty high up, so it's you can get it, and that can be a bit difficult if you've got 2 photographers in front of you, and it's hard to get sort of full length and stuff.
Balance as well.
Yeah, and you're balanced with all these heavy cameras and swapping.
I know. And the other, sorry, Sam, and the other thing I was going to say about that is, I've been to a few, do you take flashes, or do you have an on-camera flash? Because I've seen some people put up like, B1s or whatever they are, like little B1s with the soft boxes, but surely does that not put you off other people? It's just like, then there's flashes all the time. And the lighting's pretty good sometimes on the red carpets anyway.
The lighting tends to be really good. I don't really like using on-camera flash unless I have to. I don't like the look. So all the big premieres I just shoot with the available light,
with their lighting, because it's quite good. It's very clean.
It is. It's very good. I mean, sometimes you get a bit of you can get a bit of drop off. It can be like slightly different white balance, and it can be a bit different from one area to the next. But I just like that. I just find it produces sort of cleaner pictures, and I just think flash can kill it a little bit. Can kill it a little bit. And
you get nice depth of field with that as well, can't you?
You get really depth of field. I mean, I like to shoot with sort of prime lenses and sort of blow the background and shoot wide open. To kind of get some of the looks you were sort of talking about. That's done it's shot in that kind of way. So that's how I like to shoot. I mean, a lot of the people, what sells is it has to be really nicely lit, sort of bright, and so a lot of people do use flash because they want, if somebody's wearing a dress or something, they want to be able to see all the details and stuff. But most of the time, the available light, the lighting they put up is, I think, pretty good. So
I'm looking now at your site. You've got like Gaga, Daniel Craig, Zendaya, lovely. You can see it's raining in the background. Rain or snow. It looks lovely. It's just that. She's just they're just stunning images, and like you say, they're very different. Like there's another Zendaya one that's the black and white where she's got her shoulder.
Oh yeah,
is that from a premiere?
That's not from a premiere. That's actually from a portrait. That's a post up shot.
Oh, but it's from a premiere.
No.
Oh right,
that was shot in. That was shot in. You're not talking about the one in the rain. You're talking about the one.
No, the other one with the
black and white.
Yeah. I'm just looking now. That's stunning.
Yeah, that was shot in Paris, where I did like a sort of quick little portrait of her.
Wow, yeah. They're fantastic. What's it like? Because I know a few of the other guys in London that do the prems and all that.
Yeah,
everyone there, but is it quite hard for a beginner? Like, I haven't got a press card, so would you need a press card, or can you just put your business card in, is it? Or do you need to be a bit more established to do these bigger ones, if you know what I mean? Is there a lot of, oh, this is a new boy, is it quite clicky sometimes, can it be? Or
It can be, but it's a lot of
yeah,
photographers. There's always like one or two names that have been doing it for years, but there's always like
yeah,
people that are like, oh, I've never seen them before.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, they say you need a press card, but I think if you were, I mean, you usually need, if you're just a freelance photographer, you'd need like an agency or a
yeah,
publication or
yeah, of
something to get
course, yeah,
credit
yeah,
to get
yeah.
accreditation. I think as long as I think if you turned up without a press card, you'd probably still be all right just to put like a business card in or what like a credit card in.
What? How do you get a press card? What is a press card? I've never, obviously I
Have you
don't
never
do
needed
it.
one? Yeah.
Yeah,
So get one through. There's various sort of industry things. So like, I'm a member of the NUJ, National Union of Journalists. They provide them, so I'm a member of that. You pay like a fee to be a member. There's also there's various gate holders, they call them, that can provide a press card. There's the BPPA, which are British Press Photographers Association. There's various associations that you can join. You pay a fee for the year, and they're authorized to give out press cards. So they
okay,
do the checks on you to make sure you are a working photographer.
yeah.
And then they provide once they're satisfied that you are, sort of like the real deal, then they give you a press card.
The other thing I was going with premieres is that, as you know, the pictures have got to be pretty instant to go
Mm,
out, like
mm,
that. What's
mm,
the process for you? Have you got someone
mm.
there, or do you shoot straight into laptop? Do you shoot into your phone and it goes? How do you get the images? I mean, how quickly do Getty need it, or whatever? After you shoot Daniel Craig or something on
Yeah,
the red carpet, or the Brits or something, and everyone
yeah,
wants that carpet look, to
yeah,
talk about. How would you get that back so quickly?
yeah. Well, any big jobs I do, I mean, speed to market is so important because you see,
Yeah,
especially for stuff online. It's the first people that get it out there will be used online. I mean, for the then you've got different markets. So then you've got the papers as well, and then you've got sort of like the magazine market where the speed isn't so essential. So, but typically, how it will work for any big event, whether it be a film premiere or any big role job, will be I have a remote editor, so I'll be sending straight from camera. I use like a MiFi device or my phone to connect to my camera, and I'll just be tagging photos and sending live as I'm going on, and I'll have an editor um, sat at home. Um,
how instant is it? How
oh,
quick would you?
I mean, if you've got a good connection, I mean, if you're shooting, let's say you're shooting like Daniel Craig,
Yeah,
like the Bond premiere, that's a key image. So I'll shoot the pictures of Daniel Craig straight away, looking at my camera, flicking through, send, send, send. So within seconds of taking the picture,
wow. Okay, and is
that'd
that
be.
RAW or JPEG? Do you shoot?
So for that, I'll shoot RAW and JPEG.
Yeah,
So JPEG, I have a sort of thing, so it automatically sends the JPEG, and that's just to get it out quickly. And then
yeah.
afterwards,
You'll tweak it.
I'll go
Yeah,
back and do my own edit with the raws. I'll go home and go through it and do the work I want to do and get the
make
look I
it your
want to
own
get.
style then as well, isn't it? And it
Yeah,
becomes
exactly. Make it, and it's difficult looking back on a camera. You can sort of, especially when you're in a rush. You're sort of just looking for seconds, and you're just sort of tagging them. You just want to get stuff out, so you're hitting that initial market, right? The websites and
yeah.
they want pictures straight away. But then there's a whole other market where where you might want stuff for your portfolio or for magazines and stuff where
You take your
you
time.
want you take your time
Yeah,
and you see stuff and you see crops that you wouldn't see on the back of your
yeah.
camera, and you kind of you know what it's
I
like. You
love
kind of
that. I love that bit because you can be more
yeah,
creative, can't you?
you can be more creative, and you see when you're shooting it. Sometimes I'm sure you're the same. You shoot it in a certain way, and you're like, this would be great, but I need to go back and I need to crop it in such a way, or do a little tweak that will bring out the lights or the skin tone or whatever it might be. A bit of that needs a bit of contrast, and it really pop.
Yeah.
And I like that process of when you've got time and you can sit down and you can really edit the pictures and give it your own look, and that's where that's
And that
That's
makes
a
it your own style, doesn't it? It's your own individuality of your work, isn't
Yeah,
it? That's what I
and
mean. I think
that's
that's
a really
important.
important part of being a photographer. You can have like a good image, and if you know how to crop it and you know how to tweak it and edit it, you that can suddenly become a great image just
But
because of
bearing
that.
in mind as well for you, because of that, is because you're next to 100 other photographers
Yeah,
near on getting the same shot. Do
exactly,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
So you could, and I know
You've got to
everyone
be able to
shoots
just
differently, but
yeah.
you know, you've
Oh,
got to be individual.
you've got to make your pictures stand out as much as possible, and you've got to make your pictures pop. Most of the time when people see the pictures, they're just looking, even if they're looking on a laptop or whatever, selecting what pictures to use. They're looking at like the thumbnail initially, or on your phone or whatever. They're not seeing it. Ideally, you want them to be able to see the picture big in all its glory, but initially you're just seeing a
It's never
thumbnail.
like that though, is it?
No,
Sometimes you know, like the
no,
big wide shots, like the big
yeah,
crowd shots sometimes,
yeah,
like, and you think,
yeah,
if you blew this up, you could see everyone, looks
exactly,
amazing. And then it's like
yeah.
that big on the screen. You're like,
Uh,
oh, what's the
yeah, it
point?
doesn't do it justice. And when you
No.
put stuff up on, on Instagram or something, and they just people are seeing it small, it just doesn't have the impact. And you know
No.
that if you can see it like on a big screen, then
You
it will
know,
have.
I've got a big monitor here, and you see it,
Yeah,
and you can see everyone's faces in the crowd, and
yeah, yeah.
and and it's not used. It's so because you can't see it. It's so.
No.
Um, okay, one of the things that I wanted to talk about. What's the best premiere you've covered, and the worst, and what's the sort of reason? Why, if you know what I mean.
So the best I would say would probably be Cannes Film Festival, just because when it sort of comes together, there's nowhere really like it. Just a sort of glamour. I mean, where it really really works is you get like an amazing film star, usually like an actress with an amazing dress, and the carpet is crazy there. It's so busy. With people arriving, it can be really, really frustrating photographing people because you have like a really big name and it's like the people are coming in all the time. It's kind of like non-stop, and quite often you'll get people walking past in the background, and it can be really messy. And it could be a great shot, but it's just too messy. It doesn't really come together, or they don't quite pose in the right place, and they don't quite pose for you. But when it does come together, it's just amazing because you have we're all dressed in the photographers are dressed really smartly with the men in tuxedos, and the girls are dressed really smartly as
What's the
well. So
best one you've done at Cannes? What's the one that you think?
the
Oh,
one,
nailed
my
that.
favorite shot I've done at Cannes was a shot of Bella Hadid, which is on my website in my
Yeah.
portfolio. And it just came together. She just sort of, as she walked up the red carpet, she turned round. They walk up the red carpet, then they go up the stairs to the Palais with the red carpet. And just before she went up the stairs, she turned around. And she's surrounded by photographers, but she
Oh,
turned
I'm
around
seeing
and
it now.
looked
Wow.
straight at me, and just the way I caught the light and everything, for me that just sort of summed up Can. She looked amazing.
And it
She'd
looks
always
like she's shooting for you. That's what I love about your work
yes,
is you've
yeah,
got 100 people
yeah,
around you, and
yeah,
once you get that eye contact,
yeah,
that's for me, that's my shot. Boom.
yeah.
Thank you very
It's
much.
it's
It's
that
like,
intimacy, and that's one
yeah,
of the things that makes it, especially when you're shooting high profile people, when you give that sort of impression of that intimacy. When they're looking down at you, or when people look at that picture and think, she's doing that picture just for you, and that picture does that really. She's looking straight at
it's
me.
banging. It's absolutely brilliant. And the dress and everything, it looks,
Yeah, I'm surrounded
it,
by the photographers, so I
yeah,
think
it
that
just
that
looks
in,
like a set-up shot. It
yeah,
looks
the
like a
lighting,
set-up shot.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
mental. It's
And
great
it's one
shot,
of those
man.
things. It's like when and there's like 150 photographers or something on the red carpet, and when you get a shot like that, that sort of, it's what I spoke about
Mic
earlier. It's,
drop.
it's amazing, amazing, amazing feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that, and there's a few times, and there's probably every time I do Can, as I said, it can be really frustrating because you have all these amazing stars and it doesn't always work. But probably once or twice every year you get like a killer shot, and a shot that you think, okay, that's good enough for my portfolio. So when it does come together, you have the glam of Cannes, and there's nothing else like it. So I think that's my favorite shot from
Yeah,
shot on the
it's
red carpet
amazing.
at Cannes.
Yeah. Okay, what's the worst then? So because of you must have like
Yeah,
gone, what was the hell? If they're moody, because obviously I've seen it before where they just don't want, they stop and, like move along. But is there any times you've just gone, oh man, I was really excited for that, and it was not you, but it's the
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's not. I can't. There's no particular one where I'm like, but the things that make it bright. I hate shooting in front of branding boards. With
yeah,
like
yeah,
advertising
yeah,
stuff. For me,
yeah.
that kills
And
it.
you take that away sometimes, don't you? You do get rid of that if you want your own
Well,
portrait, don't you? If you know what I mean.
I don't
Not
get
to
rid of it,
Getty,
but,
obviously.
but yeah. Well, what I mean, I tend to like when there is a branding board. Quite often there is now for premieres. There didn't used to be, but they put some kind of branding board up, which I hate.
Like the
But
movie background and the title of the
yeah,
movie
yeah,
or
the
something, isn't
title of
it?
the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
tried to shoot them, but there's quite often a part of the branding board where it's just completely clean. So I will try, rather than position myself right in the middle where they have the name of the film, I'll shoot like slightly to the side. So when they do pose up in front of you, it's a clean background,
Yeah.
and it's suddenly you turn that into black and white, and it can look like a studio shot or something like
That's
that.
what I was saying to you, which I've seen on your
Yeah,
site, is where you've done the Gaga was one of them, wasn't it? Was it the Joker premiere or one of them, or one
yeah,
of the June? You did something for June as well, I think, if I remember,
yeah,
where you just got them to the side, and
yeah.
it looked
And
like a
then
portrait.
no, exactly. And that's you kind of position as you think about this is like, well, where are they going to walk onto the carpet? Where can you get shots of them without this sort of branding or the name of or a clean film? And often when they're walking onto a carpet, I shoot with one of the lenses I love using is a 200 f2 because it
Oh, lovely.
completely
Yeah, yeah.
completely blows the
Is
background,
that
and you get this. That's a
Prime
prime
200?
lens. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
prime lens.
lovely.
It's very heavy,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
it's when it does work, it completely blows the background out, and it's just so sharp. And some of the shots I've got, that shot of Zendaya in the rain that you were talking about, and there's a black and white shot of Gaga, and when you do get it, it looks
yeah, man.
amazing. So
It does.
I'm always thinking in my head, where can I get a clean shot? Something which is obviously you do have to get the posed up full length because that's what sells. I'm also looking on the red carpet.
For
Is there an
you, in a
angle?
way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For
Yeah.
me, is
And
there an
I do
angle where?
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
as a
yeah,
photographer, that's what where it be for your portfolio, but you want that kind of shot that satisfies you. So I'm
yeah.
always looking for those kind of like angles and stuff, and where there isn't a branding. So yeah, talking about the worst kind of things, branding boards when you've got no choice in the matter, and you've got all the sponsors in the background. It's kind of, for me, that kind of kills it. You have instances where it's just kind of poor lighting, and you have to use flash, and it's just
Because everyone
that can
else's
kill
is
it.
going as well, so it's just
Yeah,
like,
and it's
whoa,
just like,
yeah,
yeah, and um, it's just frustrating when you get good subjects and it's not really making a picture that you want, or they're not sort of posing in the right. They don't pose in front of you, or
or they're really quick. Do you have people that just go
yeah,
1, 2, 3, gone, and you're like, oh
they're
god,
yeah, they're really
And
quick.
do you shoot high speed? So you or
Yeah,
you?
you do. Yeah, you do. Yeah, pretty quick.
Yeah,
Yeah, high speed because you don't.
you haven't got time and stuff.
You don't have time. You don't know how long they're gonna. You do get some artists that are just amazing at
Yeah.
posing. You
Who's
get
that? Who would you say that you went? Oh, this is going to be
well,
easy.
someone like Gaga. I mean, she doesn't play by the rule book. So when like at the Lady Gaga premiere, you have 3 stops.
Yeah,
She doesn't do that. She just walks in, and there's no point telling her. She would do whatever she wants, but she's going to give like killer
yeah,
poses.
yeah, yeah,
She's
yeah,
going to be wearing
yeah.
something amazing. She's going to do her own thing, and it's just going to look amazing. And like, to be honest, all the big, I was last year at Cannes. Anna Taylor-Joy was
She's
like,
amazing to look. Yeah,
she's
she's
just
stunning.
so, you know, just looks amazing in
Yeah,
pictures, and she
yeah.
really knows how to, it's the stars that really know how to pose, and
Well, it
it's just
benefits
like a
them,
dream.
doesn't it? It
Yeah,
benefits them if
yeah.
like if they look great.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
They know how to throw the right. It's all about like throwing the right shapes and being like comfortable and showing off the dress, and then it's just like a dream to photograph. But sometimes you do get stars, it might be late, or they don't like, posing up, and it's just over just like that. And as a photographer, you're trying to get you're trying to get a variety of shots. You're trying to get the full length fashion shot, but you also want to get some portraits and some wider shots. And if it's over just like that, then you haven't got all those, and you're like, oh yeah, this is a bit of a waste of time. This is frustrating, and that does happen from time to time. But it's just it's part of the job.
Let's move on from the premieres. And one of the other things that I actually saw you at Glastonbury, but I was quite far away and I'd had a few drinks, so I didn't want to be our first meeting properly. I was on the Glastonbury side, it was quite late. And I did see, I'm sure that's Sam over there, but I said, no, not now. And but talk about Glastonbury, because you're in that really good position that 9 times out of 10 you're in the pit of the pyramid stage or second stage or whatever. And it's quite hard to get that, not everyone get it, but they're quite tight on it. But you're also, because working with Getty, you've been quite lucky to get that exclusive times where I've spoke to a lot of guys there. I'm actually shooting there this year with some of the artists. It's the first time I've shot there, but I'm not doing that. I'm going with some of the artists that I work with. And whenever I see the press guys, all follow on Facebook, there's so many restrictions now from different artists. It's crazy. Like where you look and you see the board and you might say, I don't know, scissor, they can't shoot in the pit. Yeah. You're not allowed to shoot and all that. But you've been quite lucky because you can, with Getty, they do let the odd ones go. Is that right? Or is there times where you're like, because you can go in the crowd, or is that an unwritten rule? Is it? Or I don't know,
Yeah. So it's got, I've been shooting Glastonbury for, I think the first one I shot was 2010, and I used to go.
Okay.
I've been going since I was like 16 years old.
I've only been once, and it changed everything. So I can't wait. I can't wait in a few months to go. So it's going to be amazing.
That's great. Well, we'll have to catch up.
Well, it's my early 50th celebration, and I'm working a little bit as well. So we'll meet up early in the week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's always a tough balance between enjoying yourself at Glastonbury and actually,
Do you ever do that though? Can you go out? Do you ever go out and stay out and go to Shangri-La and all that in the evening and things like that?
I do. I have a lot of friends that go. So I shoot the headliner and send those pictures, and then by the time do
you stay on site? Sorry, do you stay on site or do you stay?
I've done both. So last year I stayed on site in hospitality, and I've sometimes stay off site. But I quite like going out and sort of meeting. I have a lot of friends that go, so sort of meeting up with them after when I put the cameras away, and sort of meeting up with them. So it's just easier to stay on site. So
do you edit it and get the edit out the way quick before you can have a drink or so? Isn't it?
As quickly as you can. But
talk to me about the pit sort of, because obviously, there's different photographers I've talked about, but Glastonbury is obviously one of the world's biggest festivals, and there are a lot of restrictions and all that. But what do you get? How does it work with you guys there? If you know what I mean, you're told it's first 3 no flash normally, or is it you're allowed in the crowd if it's not like I don't know what Elton John was like a few years ago. Were you allowed in that for talk to me about that?
It's become. I remember sort of when I first started, Glastonbury was one of the sort of few things where you could shoot everything. Whoever came, even if they were kind of restrictive on tours and stuff like that, you'd go to Glastonbury and you'd be able to shoot it. And then that slowly started changing, and it seems to get worse every year. I think the first time I wasn't able to shoot headliner from memory was Kanye when he came, and suddenly that was a closed pit, and you had Kim Kardashian and all his entourage.
Right.
In the pit.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was the first
in the pit. Were they? Were they in the pit? Were they?
They were watching it from the pit.
Oh, okay.
So I remember like, oh God, we've got to go out to the crowd to try and get some shots of that absolute nightmare. So that was the first time, and then slowly it started creeping in more and more, to the extent now where a lot of the big names, it's like a closed pit. Sometimes they'll let a few of us in, or they'll let us shoot from the first barrier back.
Now, is that in front of the bloody flags?
Yeah,
because
so the problem
if you're in the front of house, with the 2 on each side, you've got to be lucky to get a shot from that.
It's not like front of house. So there's a security barrier between the mixing desk and the stage.
Yeah.
where there's actually a little sort of passageway where the
Yeah.
security can walk up
Oh,
and
okay.
down. So you can get in there, so you can walk around, and you can kind of, the flags are in the way, which is a nightmare, but you can sort of move up
Yeah,
and down
yeah,
because there's a little
yeah,
sort of passageway in there. So it is okay, but you sort of line them up, and out of nowhere comes a flag, and it is tricky. So that's come in a lot more last sort of 2 or 3 years, where you have to shoot from further back.
yeah,
Um, some of the time they will let, like, it's restricted, but they'll let like 2 or 3 photographers in. So sometimes you get access if you have relationship with the PR or the management. And then sometimes you do shoot it from the crowd. Like Elton John was a completely closed pit.
yeah. I was there for
So
that. That was the one. It was a great show, wasn't it? It was
it's
absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah, just the atmosphere was,
Yeah, yeah,
great
yeah,
Glastonbury
yeah,
moment, that.
yeah.
So we went out, a few of us went into the crowd.
How long before? Because I remember it was a rap artist before that. Because we saw was it
Yeah, it was
Debbie Harry first, and then we walked down. And each time you can sort of get closer and closer between each
yeah,
act. So
yeah,
did you plan for that? Did you go in like
yeah.
an hour before the?
We went in for the act before. So we sat through. I went in for I can't remember who it was.
It was a rap artist or
Yeah,
something I can remember. They were good. He was
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So we were there for the whole of that.
yeah.
And then when he finished,
There's a little.
there's a kind of like,
Yeah,
some people leave, some people sort of. So
yeah.
by the time Elton came on, we were sort of pretty
It was
close to the, pretty
it's
close to
like
the
that, wasn't
front.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, were you really? Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, when
Uh,
you're allowed to do that, are
yeah.
you allowed to shoot the whole gig?
Yeah, so
Or
you're shooting
so
from the crowd. So
yeah,
Glastonbury are like, we can't stop you from going in the crowd. As far as we're concerned, it's the artist's decision not to let you in, but we're still happy. We still want the coverage. That's not our decision, and we're
right,
happy
okay.
to. Some festivals can be
Yeah,
funny about you going in the crowd, but Glastonbury. I mean, part of shooting Glastonbury is shooting, like, going out into the crowds and shooting
yeah.
all the craziness that goes on around site and stuff. So you do a lot of that alongside shooting the music. So they're fine with you going into the crowd. It's just a pain, you have to
So
be there
you
really
stayed
early.
for the whole gig, but you got some great pictures. That's the thing. It was
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, we knew who was bringing out special guests, so you wanted to sort of stay there. And it's just, by the time you're in there, especially if you're close to the front, I mean, it's just a mission to get out, and you don't know who they're going to bring. I remember it was the same with. I actually shot McCartney when he played a couple of years before, and I knew he was
yeah.
going to be bringing out special guests. So I was like, I'm going to shoot this from the crowd because I know
Were you
he's going to
allowed in
bring
the
out.
pit, were you, at the time? Were you allowed
I
in the
think you
pit?
had, yeah. Well, you had access again to uh, the sort of pit, sort of further back, halfway back into the crowd. So they could have shot it from there, but I wanted to shoot it from the crowd because I just thought I just want the shot of. We didn't know who was going to bring out, and of
It's
course you
Dave Grohl,
thought
was it? Did he bring out
Dave
Dave Grohl?
Grohl and
Yeah.
Springsteen, and they were all
Oh,
on
well,
stage
wow.
together.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
at
yeah.
the end, so it's like, yeah, you kind of
Yeah.
didn't know who it was going to be, but you knew it's going to bring out someone big. So
And did the crowd get pissed off of you? Was there anyone like, because you got the lens and all that? Was
yeah,
anyone like a bit? You must get
well,
that.
yeah,
Where it's like,
you do
know,
get that. You do get that, but you have to make friends with, like,
yeah,
the
yeah,
people
yeah,
around you.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
get in
yeah.
there and
You
like,
do. I know.
look,
I've done that.
I'm I'm going to be shooting this, and like you pick your moments, especially you have quite often you take a little stool in, so you
Yeah,
can like just jump up,
yeah,
get a quick shot, and then you go down
yeah,
for the
yeah,
key
yeah,
moments. But you pick
yeah.
your moments. You're not up there for the whole thing, and you talk to the people around you, and you just say, look, there's going to be like a moment or two when I might need to go up to get the shots. But it's
People love it though. I did it at the Isle of Wight when we weren't allowed to shoot in the. I can't remember who it was. It might be Debbie Harry or something. She wasn't
yeah,
allowed to. And you just end up just chat because everyone's really
yeah,
friendly, aren't they?
yeah,
They're
they
all like,
are,
oh yeah,
yeah,
and you like look at
yeah.
and do that, and it's quite as long as you're nice. I always find that if you're a nice person and you're
You
nice
have
and
to be really nice from the moment you go in, and you've got all
yeah,
of that. They can see that you're like an official accredited photographer, and you
yeah,
explain it to them as like saying, it's a closed pit. We're not allowed in the pit. We're here to get the shot, and let's work. And then you've got a little stall, like you can stand on this for a bit as well. And then, oh wow,
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
great
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
You make friends with them, and
You just got to be careful of the beer, the drinks. It's like everyone's like, and you're
and
thinking,
then,
oh
and then yeah,
mate.
I have had it where people get really annoyed and start throwing things at you, and yeah,
Well, I've had
but
the worst thing I've ever seen with that, and it was in the pit. Was we were shooting BDI at Brixton. I don't know if you were
Right.
there. You might have been even there, but it was. And there was a female photographer next to me, and she got a pint of urine smashed
Oh,
into her
wow.
face from that, and I felt horrible for her because those
Yeah.
sort of gigs, I always remember. You know, when you go to a gig and go, "Oh, damn it, did I not bring my coat to
Yeah.
put your
Yeah.
hood
Yeah.
up?" You know, like because it
Uh,
just like hits you all the time, and they do like it. You know, I've seen it before at gigs because I use my monopod sometimes at club events. You know,
yeah.
like with Fatboy
Yeah.
Slim, I like getting the monopod out. And if you're in the middle, I've seen people, not me, but I've seen like people trying as a target practice. So you got
Yeah.
to be so careful with your kit and when you're right in with the crowd,
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
you?
Yeah. Yeah. You can get covered in, yeah,
And,
fear and God. Yeah. That's a sort of, one of the downsides. But you get to shoot. You get to, normally we just get to shoot the first three, and if you're shooting a headliner, and it could be something you really like, but you have to go up. You have to go back, edit the pictures, get them out as quickly as possible, and you might then get a chance to go out and catch the end of the gig. But often you miss stuff. But one of the upsides of shooting from the crowd is get to see the whole thing.
right. So we've got into that. We've touched a little bit about the Royals, and one of the next questions is how did you get into it? And obviously, you talked about your dad and sort of anything like that. But
Mm.
a lot of your work is Royal. You know, the Royals and some of the absolutely amazing imagery from there. You know, from the Harry and Meghan umbrella shot. Just quickly talk about that because that's become you've won awards on that, haven't you? It's a massive
Mm.
iconic image, isn't it?
Mm.
Which
Mm.
was a premiere, was it, or something like that? Was it? It wasn't. Obviously not set up as a
Yeah.
portrait shoot. You
No.
know, it was like
No.
it was like. To
Yeah. No.
talk to me
That
about that.
was so. That was what they had just announced that they were going to be stepping down as sort of senior royals. So this was actually one of their last ever engagements that we were doing, and I'd actually been in Ireland. Shoot, William and Kate were on like a little tour of Ireland, and I'd been there for a couple of days. And Harry and Meghan were doing this engagement on the last day, so I actually had to fly back to shoot them because it was big news that they were stepping down. And I think they were doing like, it was seen as a kind of, they'd sort of gone off to LA or North America. I can't remember if they were in LA or Canada, and they were coming back to do like 2 or 3 engagements before stepping down. So this was like a big story, and like it's one of the last like the kind of farewell tours as royals. So I flew back from Ireland to do this job, and it was just kind of as it is with a lot of the royal things, them arriving at an event. And I got to the event, and well, as you can see from the pictures, it was absolutely pissing it down. And as a photographer, it's just a nightmare because it was like torrential, right? And we were outside and trying to keep your kit
Oh, mate, it's horrible, isn't it? I just
dry.
think.
Is at night, so then
Oh,
you have to use a bit of flash, and what it's like in
it
the
just. Oh, it's
rain.
just just
It's like,
grim.
and it's in the rain, so they're going to have an umbrella, and it's like this is just going to be a waste of time. All the elements were like against you, right? It's like, oh, this is just horrible. It's soaked to the bone. It's just one of those things that. So they did arrive. And it's just one of those things that you dream of as a photographer, where all the elements you want for a great photo just came together. So there was this there was a big crowds there for people that wanted to see them. Obviously, huge interest in them at the time. And there was this light. I think it's from a TV camera coming
Yeah, it
in
looks like it, doesn't
from
it? It looks like a big sort of.
yeah, from
Yeah.
behind them, from the crowd. And initially, when they got out of the car and they were walking straight towards me, and I was just dazzled by this light coming into like my camera, and I was like, I can't focus. Like,
Yeah.
so I sort of, and I only moved like like an inch or two, but I managed to sort of like move down slightly just so that backlight hit the back of their head rather than shining right into my camera lens. And that then, I mean, from all your studio stuff, then becomes a nice backlight and gives a kind
Yeah.
of like halo
Mm.
effect. And there was a split second where, as you see from the picture, where they just look at each other for smiling, and it was literally like not even a second. And I just managed to capture it with my flash from myself, sort of lighting it from the front, that sort of halo effect from the back. Just that split second when they looked at each other
Mate,
smiling, and when all the rain coming down, that created like such a dramatic picture, and it was
well,
just
look, you look at the cobbles and by her feet and everything, it's reflections and
yeah,
it's mental, mate.
yeah.
I bet. Did you look at that straight away and go, "Oh my god"? Or was it one when you got home because it's obviously wet and raining and you're just
Yeah.
looking on the back and then you got it home
I
and
knew
put
it
it
was a
on
good
screen?
picture, but I was so caught up in trying to get the pictures out quickly, and I knew that,
Yeah,
oh, that's a really good shot. But I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that shot, and I knew it was a really good shot. But to be honest, I sent that out, and within a few minutes, I started getting messages
I was
like
going to.
a
How?
picture editor,
Yeah.
one of the national newspapers who I knew. He dropped me a message saying, "What an image! We're putting that on the front page tomorrow." And then, yeah, I started getting a couple of minutes. I was like, okay, that's a good image. I'm going to put that up on. I'm going to post that on like Instagram. I'll put that up straight away because we had a bit of time. They went into the engagement, and it started getting unused on websites. And suddenly, everyone around me with other photographers and stuff said, "Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing!" And then suddenly there was this buzz created. I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of like stopped and like looked at it
This
again and
is
said,
you sort of
"Yeah,
get. Hang on,
yeah."
this is special.
Yeah,
This is
you
gone.
start getting
Yeah.
reaction, and it started like on Twitter. People started posting it on Twitter, and suddenly there's like all this buzz around this picture. I put it up on Instagram, and before you know it, had gone viral, getting all these messages, and then overnight, and then in the morning was getting all these calls from from people wanting to ask about it, and it just went viral and went crazy.
Can I ask with that, Sam, as well, is that you own the copyright on that as well, don't you? So if it's
Mm,
used on, say, Good Morning Britain want to use it, have they bought
mm,
it through Getty?
yeah,
If you know what I mean. So
yeah.
you let them distribute it, but
Yeah.
you get a deal with it, sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So they handle all that side of it, all the
yeah.
kind of sales syndication side of it. So
Is
I
that your
don't.
top photo royal shot of all time? We'll come to it a bit later, but I wanted to ask if that's
You mean
the
in
one.
terms of like my favorite, or in terms of like the one
Commercial. I'm
that's
not going to ask obviously how much, but I just want to,
yeah, that's my. I think that's my most used. I've had other shots that sort of like for one-off sales. I've had like a picture that was used on like a stamp in like
Oh wow.
in Australia and
Oh, I've
stuff.
seen
It
that
was
now. The prince, the birth of the
yeah.
prince. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few that have used sort of for one-off like stamps and stuff like that, which as a one-off sale was really big. But I think this for this is something I see on my sales report, every month and continues to get used. So I
This
don't
is a
know how many
legacy
times.
photo, isn't it? For me, this is one of those photos that will be used. Whatever goes on with Harry and Meghan,
Mm.
you've taken a moment in time that it's an epic photo, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I think so, and it's really hard to judge your own pictures, right? Because you see them all the time, but this is definitely the picture that's had the biggest reaction for any
yeah.
picture I've
Well, you
taken. This
knew
is
on the night where it was like,
yeah,
hang on, what's going
yeah,
on?
exactly,
Oh my god,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So, what's the most challenging part of photographing members of the royal family? Would you say?
Um, I think it's difficult. Like with roles, it's quite difficult in that you have relatively little control over them. For example, the royals don't really pose up. I mean, like the European royals, for example, when they arrive at an event, they will stop and pose in front of you like a red carpet, kind of like. But the British royals, they don't do that. They get on with the engagement, so they're not really posing up. I mean, they a lot of the time, unless you're shooting like an official picture, like I did William and Kate's engagement pictures and Harry and Meghan, where they're coming and they're posing up for you, or you're lucky enough to shoot a portrait or something where you're posing up and you have some kind of control over the image. Most of the time, they're just getting on with the engagement because they're not necessarily there for you, as their first thing is not to be there for the photographer. You're more like a fly on the wall documenting what they're doing. So they might be there for, their charity work, or they might be meeting dignitaries or meeting members of the public, and that's their focus. So they're not there to pose up, and so you're trying to get a picture out of essentially nothing. That they can, a lot of the stuff they do picture wise is quite sort of, can be quite some, shaking hands, or it's not really making a great picture. So it's trying to get a picture out of nothing, really.
What I've noticed is you similar to the premiere stuff. You pick your moments with a certain lens you can crop in and get some lovely ones of Kate and the Queen with her eyes shut and things like that, where you've cropped it. You've cropped it so it looks like a portrait sometimes, and that's where I see you different to other royal photographers, and I think that's why you've become so successful.
And I think that just comes through experience, knowing you develop your own style and you know what you're looking for in a picture. And most engagements, 9 times out of 10, it can be like a fleeting moment, just a split second, but there will be a picture there. It can look like them, just really kind of run-of-the-mill pictures, but that there'll be a little moment where it will produce potentially a great image. And you see it through experience of photographing the royals all the time. You kind of get to know their mannerisms and their tendencies. And like, take William and Kate, for example, there will be a moment where they'll be together and they'll give each other a little look and they'll smile at each other, or William will put his arm on Kate's shoulder and they just look, and suddenly out of nowhere, it just be a split second, but you've got that little moment, and then that sort of tells the story, and suddenly you've got like a really good image. So it's through experience, learning to anticipate those moments. And
that's what I was going to say, is that do you get, because you've shot them so many times, do you get to know their mannerisms and go, she's going to laugh here, she's going to, or they're going to do that, so you get to know them. And just quickly before you say that, is how well do you know them? I know it's I just wanted to know, do they know, hey Sam, are they like that, or is it still quite a barrier, if you know what I mean?
No, I mean, I know them all. I mean, I've been, especially William and Kate are the people I've photographed the most. I mean, I've sort of photographing Williams in, well before, he was engaged to Kate and stuff, and been on, I've been on every tour William and Kate have done. And you do get to, with the royals and the King and Queen as well, you often get to fly on the same flight as them. If you're on tour, they often put aside a bit of time where they will come and talk to you sort of off the record, like a kind of informal chat. So over the years, you do get to talk to them. I mean, I was just in last week, I was in Belfast with the King and Queen, and I was doing I was shooting the pool where they were meeting the first minister, and I was sort of in the room with the King and Queen waiting for it's just sort of pretty much us and the
quite surreal. Do you still find that quite a surreal thing with like that?
It is. I mean, it's not. It takes. It's not every day that you stood in a room with just you and the King and Queen. So you shed a few, and you do. Yeah, you do get to know them a bit. I mean, they have. You keep that they often, that they get on with their side of stuff, but you do get to, over the years, you get to talk to them, and they do know you. Yeah.
Do you, just going back on that? Do you? We talked about this before we start recording. You don't work for Buckingham Palace. Are you employed by Getty, or are you now a freelance royal? So they ask you, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'm freelance, so I get the access through relationship with Kensington Palace or Buckingham Palace. So they will invite me to engagements and tours, and it's sort of officially accredited through them, but I'm not employed by them, so they don't. I'm allowed to do what I want with the photos, and with a lot of the stuff I apply for, some of the time with the roles, it's sort of through my own name. I've been doing it for a long time, but some of the time I will use sort of use like Image and Getty to get my accreditation, or sometimes I go for a publication. Whatever you do to whether with music or red carpet, whatever you need to get the access. But with the palaces, I have a very good relationship with them. Worked with them for years and know them all.
So I was going to go on that as well. Is that Obviously, there's been some major events. You've lost the Queen, Prince Philip, and the weddings, the Jubilees. You're obviously, how do you get, where do you work out? So the weddings, you've got a great one of Kate walking in with Pippa. You're in the fountain, got the time and all that. Where for the wedding, for example, have you got a certain place that you're given by outside the cathedral, and then you've got to rush down to the fountain? Is that what it is, like that sort of thing? Or
So basically, for like a big landmark event like that, be it like the Queen's funeral or royal wedding or the coronation or whatever, they will have a few positions. So if you take the royal wedding of William and Kate, there's the positions at Westminster Abbey where they're obviously getting married, and then there's the position along the route where they were going the carriages past all the crowds, and then there's Buckingham Palace where they come out on the balcony. So on that day, so you sort of apply through the palace to what position you want, and you can't, because of the nature of it, you can't move. You just can't physically get, because of the crowds and stuff. So you have to pick one. And on that day, I was outside Westminster Abbey because I wanted the picture of her arriving, all the guests arriving, and for me, the key picture is Kate in
totally
Kate in a dress.
in the dress. Yeah.
So you get her arriving, you get her coming out, and that's I mean, I got the picture of her arriving in the dress with that's my favorite picture from the day is her arriving with when she turned and waved and Pippa there holding the dress. And so that's you apply for the positions you want. I mean, for the coronation, for me, it's kind of, the last coronation was, I look back at old pictures of the coronation of the Queen, and obviously there's a pictures at Abbey where it happened, but for me, the kind of the classic pictures was her on the balcony with a crown on her head waving to the crowds, and I was like, that's the picture I want. That's like nice, clean, classic picture. It would be used for decades to come, and that's the picture I wanted from the coronation, the King and Queen out on the balcony with the crown on his head, with the robes and everything like that. So that's where I chose to be, was outside.
It's a stunning shot. That it's great, isn't it? It's so iconic.
Yeah, and it's kind of so you just want that kind of classic image that would be used for, that you can show like in decades to come, and it is a historical picture. So any of these big events, you kind of choose your position and you apply, to the palace, and that's the picture you get.
Two of my favourite pictures are the ones that aren't, they're not set up. I love the one of, is it Prince George, where he's got his hands over his ears? Is it Prince Louis, isn't it?
Louis, yeah.
The Queen is just like, brilliant. I love that shot. It was just, and were you at the time going, "Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is perfect." It's such a moment, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, one of the best things about what I like about shooting the roles is when you do get like these spontaneous moments out the blue, because most of the time everything's you have it's all very dignified, and which is great. But then when you do get these spontaneous moments, which you often do with the kids, right? Yeah. And you just know that that's gold, because so when Louis went through the stage of every time he came out the balcony, he was just at that age where you can't tell a kid that age how to behave. They just do what they want. And as you're taking a picture, you're like, this is just gold. This is brilliant.
but my favourite image is, which is it is. And I've sent it to my wife, loves it and all that. And you've got that moment. And it's, you've got loads of, I mean, there's so many good ones, but the one I love the most is that kid doing the V sign at a wedding. With Kate in the background telling the kids off. And I mean, that is, because it's, they're all mums, and they've got but that is a moment where you just think, oh my God, that is epic. It's a proper rock and roll sort of image, isn't it? If you know what I mean.
I know. It's amazing, and just something that you could never predict. It's the last thing you kind of expected. That was at Pippa's wedding, and just when they were going in, and Kate was Charlotte was one of the bridesmaids, Princess Charlotte, and Kate sort of walked down holding her hand, and with all the bridesmaids and bridegrooms, and he just turned around and did this, and you're like, oh my god! And then
Because you don't
Kate's
see
in the
that
background.
ever at anything like
I
that, do
know,
you? You don't. It's like,
I
and
know.
and it's her reaction as well. It's like, get in, get
Yeah,
away, and he's just
she
like
just,
giving
but
the
she
old.
just, mouth wide open. Like, what the hell's going
And did
on?
anyone else get that, or were you one of the only ones that got it? If you know what I mean, were you,
I
sort of
think
shooting
like
high street?
there weren't many. There was only like there was very very few of us that got to shoot Pepper's wedding. So
Yeah,
I think some people might have got it, but I don't know. Like I got it really well, so I think maybe one or two other
perfect.
people got it. But
Yeah,
that's another shot that sort of went viral as
it's
well on
so
social
good, man.
media. Yeah, and it's
So
just one
good.
of those unpredictable moments that is that spontaneity which makes a killer picture. Especially with the Royals, because it's rare you get that.
No, exactly. Right, we'll just go through a few more of these. Is there unwritten rules or like specific things you can't do? Especially after experience, you must go, I don't do that. Or, you might have done that at the beginning and now you go, well, with your dad, obviously your dad must have warned you on protocols and things like that,
Yeah,
didn't he? So,
yeah, and I think generally, I mean, most of it's sort of common sense about being respectful. I mean, there's things like you can't really call out to them.
right, okay.
So
Like
you
a
know,
premiere where you can normally
like a
go, yeah,
premier, like
yeah,
come here.
yeah, yeah,
You can't do that at all. So a lot of the way you photograph it is kind of fly on the wall. You're just documenting what they're doing and let them get on with it. But a lot of the time, especially when you're on tour and you might be one of the few photographers that's shooting that engagement, or sometimes you're the only photographer, and you see potentially a great image, and you talk to then even then you can't like call out to them, but you talk to a member of their team, their communications secretary or whoever you're working with at the time, and obviously you've got a relationship with them. You're like, look, this can we position them here? Can we make this work? And they sort of step in, and we can make the picture happen. But most of the time, it's kind of like hands off. You let them get on with it, so you can't no calling out. I think it's just sort of common sense. You tend to dress
yeah.
how they would dress. So, for formal events, making sure you're well dressed. Most of the time, you have to be smart, general rule of the thumb. But sometimes when you're on tour in a really hot country and, they'll be a bit more casual, then you can be a bit more sort of casual. But I just knowing, I think, quite often you'll be shooting like part of the Royal Rota or part of a pool, and they'll be talking to a dignitary, and just knowing when to step in to take the picture and when to step back and let it happen. You don't want to
Let them get on with it, sort of thing,
yeah,
until,
you want to be more fly on the wall. You don't want them to know you're there. You don't want to be too much in their face, so let them get on with it. And that just, with experience, that sort of comes, when actually, let me just step back. This is not really a picture that is going to work. Let them get on with it. And when the picture does happen, then you sort of step in and make it happen. So it's all common sense. And, you work with big artists before, and it's just about letting them get on with it and knowing when to step in. And also,
you can
when
tell on their moods as well, can't you? Sometimes you think, I ain't going there today.
no,
You know what I mean? Like,
give them the
yeah,
space,
yeah. Of course, yeah.
And just, when you do a lot of the time, when you do talk to them, it's sort of off the record. You don't. It's
You can
sort of
judge how they are feeling and all that.
yeah, keep it, private talks you have, and not, not going and talking about that. And it's about building
Yeah, of
up,
course.
building
Respect
up,
and
building up trust,
and trust. Yeah,
over the time. And if you do, sometimes you get a picture where they don't look great.
yeah.
You're not gonna put it out, and you want
And
to
that's
make
what
them
I'm
look
saying is you don't get you don't need to prove the photos, do you, with Buckingham
no,
Palace yourself? But as respect and trust,
yeah,
I'm not going to put that one up that might, there's a photo you might have caught an angle or something like that.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, it looks bad on you, doesn't it? At the end of the
yeah.
day, you're going to get the fallback on it. If it goes
No,
out and
it's just not worth it. And
no,
I don't want to put out pictures where anyone, I want to, every time I photograph somebody, I want to show them in the best possible light. I'm not after like taking, a sort of picture that, it might get used a lot, but it shows them in a bad light.
no, completely.
You want to work with artists, with celebrities, with the royals, and that's all about trust and building up a relationship. So yeah. It's common sense.
And what's the favourite royal event you like to photograph? What's what's the one you've done in the past or now that it might be a regular thing? Obviously you've done some. It goes on to both questions. I say, how do you prepare for an occasion that knowing how high profile it is, like the funeral, a wedding, and and there must be a bit of, oh my God, I've got to get these images. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever feel like that? Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I've got the Queen's funeral or a wedding where they come out, oh my God, is all my batteries charged? Is everything, have I got is the memory card fast enough and things like that? Do you ever feel that pressure sometimes? Because, especially of how high up you are, regarded, there must be pressure on yourself to always get the shot,
Yeah, I mean, for the kind of, almost once in a lifetime or once in a generation things, you took like the William and Kate royal wedding, the Queen's funeral, or the coronation. You put, I mean, as a royal photographer, you put huge pressure on yourself to
I can imagine, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like you really want a kind of classic image, something that you can show people, for years to come. So the pressure I put on myself is
I was going to
huge.
say, is it like that? Do you feel like on the day, do you get all like, oh my God, come on, here we go,
Yeah, to be honest, it's the build up to it. So
Yeah.
when I'm actually shooting it, it's fine because then it's kind of like that's so natural to me. I'm sure it's like when it's happening, it just all happens. You don't really think about it, and you experience enough, and you love taking pictures, and you know how to shoot. So when you're shooting, it's fine, but it's the build up. And like, for example, I mean, take the coronation. I had to be there. And the coronation, I think, by the time they arrived, we came out on the balcony. It was about 1 o'clock. I was there at, I think, 5 or 6 in the morning to get in
Oh my
position.
God. So you were just anticipation was just
Yeah,
like,
and I
and
had,
everyone's talking about it as well. All the other togs are going, oh, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? Oh, how are you shooting it? And all that sort of stuff. So,
exactly, and
oh,
that's what
mate.
feeds all into that. And you had your position, like you had the built a stand opposite the balcony, and I had like position like central and everything, and I'd been there, the day before. You have like they provided sort of like hard lines so you can plug straight into your
Okay, right.
thing.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got like, because obviously reception just completely dies, so you can send
Oh,
straight
of
from camera
course,
and
yeah.
back. So all of that is sort of organised, weeks and days. Being there sort of in the build up, you get your position, exactly what lens you need, but you're still there. You still have to be in position really super early, and you want to test that it's all working. And once you're in position, you can't leave because then the crowds start
Oh my
building. It's
God.
all
How'd you go to
a
the
secure
toilet?
area. They put a toilet there.
Okay, you got
Thank
like a
God.
portaloo, yeah.
Yeah, you bring your food, you bring your snacks,
Oh God! Is it
and
the
you get.
normal the same people in the how many? I mean, you must have been in there loads of times in the
Yeah,
fountain. Is it
yeah.
normally the same guys? So it's a bit
You
of
do. You
camaraderie
get,
sort of thing.
there is. You get your sort of raw photographers, and you get sort
Yeah.
of big newspaper photographers. But you also, for an event like that, you get, there's interest around the world. So you get like big
Yeah.
photographers coming over from like the US and even
Yeah.
from like Australia. You get photographers from huge publications from all over the world. So, and this is a real buzz. But you've got all this time to wait for like this
Right.
little moment on the thing, and you're testing and you're
Does
testing.
anyone come out? So is there? Do you ever go? Oh, can someone come out like like from the Buckingham Palace? Do they ever come out and go? Not like that, but does anyone do like what I
They
mean?
don't
Don't you?
come out. They don't come out to like for that reason, but you get
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
coming out, sort of
Yeah.
making sure everything's clean.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah. So you're
like
sort of like,
sort of
yes, let's
so-
check the
yeah.
focus
So
and
you
all
have your
that. Yeah.
test shots, and you're testing and test, and that's where the kind of you're most worried about. Something going wrong with your camera. And on that day it started raining
Oh,
about 8 or 9 a.m. and it didn't stop raining. So you're keeping
it was
your
bad, wasn't it? Yeah.
you're keeping your kit dry. Um, you're testing. You're worried about like one of the things you worry about most is being able to get the pictures out straight
Oh,
away.
really
So
quick. Oh, okay.
So that's it's things like that that you're most worried about rather than the kind of shooting, because you've got your I have like my tripod set up. I have like various
Is it
different
on a
lenses.
tripod? Are you on a tripod or are
So a
you
tripod
handheld?
for a long lens.
Yeah.
So I have like a 600
Oh,
millimeter
wow.
lens on a tripod, and then I have like other lenses because you want to get a variety of like a wider shot as well, and bits with like the whole family, so you need to shoot it a bit wider. So various different focal things, and then just the anticipation, and then you have them arrive. You get to shoot them coming down the mile in the carriages, and you get shots of them in the carriages as they come past, and it just builds, and
it's quite a short amount of time, but it's just the adrenaline. It must be like going mad. Because one of my things is, and I've done it a few times when you do gigs, and it's like I'm in the booth and I'm doing high speed because you haven't got, and it's buffering.
Yeah,
do you have that sometimes where I'm like, come on, and you've got fast cards, but if you're shooting quickly, sometimes the buffering takes ages.
RAW and JPEG, and
that's what I do.
Carried away with a moment, you just hold the trigger, and it's
and it's
like,
not working. You're thinking, hurry up, come on. I've done it a few times.
But it's and then it's over, and you send the pictures out, and then you get your laptop out and send the pictures, and then you know what we spoke about earlier, and then you just get the huge buzz through getting the pictures, and it's weeks and months of anticipation for that shot, and you've got some shots that you're happy with, and it's just a relief. And the buzz you get from getting good pictures for something that big is amazing.
Just quickly talking about kit, you're a Nikon user, I'm a Canon user. We said there'd be a little bit, which is fine. We don't talk to Sony users. That's all I'm saying. And I've got a lot of friends at Sony. But what I was going to say is, are you an ambassador for Nikon? Do they give you kit, or do you have to buy it?
They give.
We all buy kit, but do like a 600? People don't know is not cheap. So do they lend you it, or have you got that as in part of your kit, if you know what I mean?
There's this sort of deal where you get it for a lot cheaper. They give you some kit. So it's that's really sort of beneficial. And then I have to, but you still end up buying a lot of kit because the kind of variety of stuff I need is huge. So I mean, the amount of lenses I have 3 bodies that I use, and for a lot of jobs I do use 3 bodies just to get swapping between getting tight headshots to wider shots.
You take 3 each time, so you've got like 3. You don't for pit stuff. You don't for gigs, do you? Is it normally?
No, I'd use 2. 2 for things, but for raw events, sometimes 3.
Okay,
depending on what it is.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Quite often 3, you don't really know what you're going to need, and you can just pick up and shoot like that. So I have such a huge collection of lenses from everything from like your prime sort of 50, 85 mils for shooting portraits to going all the way up to sort of 6. Got 400, 600 for shooting the when you're further away, and a lot of the raw stuff you don't often get to be. Not always anyway that close. You're often from a distance, and you want to get the tighter stuff. So a lot of gear, and I've always used Nikon, so just built stuff up.
Is your dad Nikon as well?
He was Nikon, so that was the sort of start of it. And then you start buying all this gear, and then it's
the lenses.
You don't really want to swap
everything. It's the lens. If you change over a system, Canon lenses now. We're talking. I use Panamos, which is a good site, good site sort of thing. But they're so expensive. Everything's gone up. So invest in your lenses, and this goes on to my next question: is what advice would you give someone to look into breaking in the field of photography, where you are, entertainment to royal stuff? If there's someone that's come out of college, or I didn't learn from college. If you look at the last pod, it was through assisting.
Okay.
So, at Sony Music, I was at Sony for 4 or 5 years there.
Great.
What would you give advice to someone that's coming through now? Because it's hard out there, isn't it?
It's great. It's harder than ever, I think. But, well, first and foremost, is you just can't beat going out there and shooting. Shoot as much as you can. You can do all the the courses and stuff you want, but actually going out there and throwing yourself out there and shooting, that's the only way you develop and kind of develop your technical skills. Get to master the camera and get to master light. I think light in all kinds of photography is if you can understand light, then
Mm.
you're halfway there, and that can really distinguish you if you can really understand light and how to use light, whether it be in a portrait situation, whether it be, live music, how to make the most of the light, or any kind of job. That's the first thing I look at, is how to make the most of the light, and that could be a film premiere or portrait shoot, or with the Royals. And by shooting that, you're going to develop that, and you're going to, over time, develop your own style, which is key. I think the second thing is, whether you want to shoot gigs or the Royals or whatever, the key is to get the access, and getting the access is difficult. So you need an in, and you get that through working with a publication, working with a website, working with an agency. So you need, unless you're a really, really big name at starting off, you need to
Hustle.
get some hustle and build a
Yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
approach magazines, approach newspapers, whatever it takes to get, because that's what you're approaching PRs or management to get this access, and they're going to say, well, who are you shooting for? And you need to, get in with an agency, start doing smaller jobs, for
Build up your
an
work as
agency,
well, isn't it? Build up your
build
portfolio
up,
and yeah.
yeah, just getting it, and then slowly the access will start improving. But you need an in, and you need to be you need to have somebody behind you that can get you the access. And what you've spoken about is sort of learn. I would say learn. Pick somebody within the industry, within the kind of thing, that, whether it be a raw photographer, a music photographer, or whatever, a portrait photographer, whatever you want to shoot. Look at who's the best in that industry, and really try and study their work, and get a mentor, get someone that that you can feed off them to get advice, and compare your pictures to them. It's like, well, how do I get to that? That's what I did. I looked at sort of the best in the industry. I was like, how do I get? I looked at my pictures aren't as good as theirs. Why? How can I develop? Try and talk to us. If you can get a mentor, try and just approach these. Most photographers will be only too happy to give advice, and learn from them, and what it takes to get to that level.
Do you ever have assistants? Do you ever have someone that
Yeah,
comes and helps you with,
yeah,
runners and things like that? It's like, do this, can you
yeah.
go and get that, and things like. You do have that on certain
Yeah,
shoots.
yeah, definitely, like portrait shoots, or work with assistants,
Yeah,
lighting
me too. Yeah,
assistants,
yeah.
and
It's
um,
because you can talk to the subjects while not mucking around with lights or
exactly,
whatever. It's all
It's
about getting the
it's
subjects trust.
invaluable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And you don't want to be adjusting the lights. You get somebody else to sort of do, as you're sort of shooting. You can
Yeah,
have that rapport with the subject while someone else is doing all that. The last thing would be to sort of build. You call it hustle. Build relationships with the key. You need to get to know the right people. Be that, obviously the bands and the artists themselves, but there's certain people that hold the key to you getting the access, and that's usually
100%.
management,
Yeah,
PR,
yeah.
picture editors,
More than
and
the band sometimes,
yeah,
because the band
yeah. The
don't
bands
know
don't.
anything.
No, you can have a
Yeah,
relationship with the band, and I sometimes speak to artists, and they're like, "Well, speak to. I'd love to work with you, but I have to go through my PR or speak through
yeah,
my management."
yeah.
And
Of
then
course.
they hold the key to getting that access, to
Yeah,
build relationships with them, and then they're the ones that can open the doors for you. So yeah,
that's very good. That good advice, man. And what I'd say is like, so I've got a couple more questions just to go through here, and then very quickly, listeners, would you have you done a book? Have you done a book or an exhibition? Because, mate,
I did.
surely it's like there's a coffee table
Yeah,
book there, man.
yeah. So I did an exhibition with my dad before he passed
Yeah,
away. With it was mostly about his sort of work with Diana. It's like Diana
yeah.
exhibition, but
What did?
we
Sorry, going back really quickly because I don't want to interrupt.
yeah,
Diana shots. Did he do the wedding? Did he do the
he did the
engagement and
wedding.
all that?
He
The
did,
engagement
yeah,
shot. Oh
yeah,
wow! So he did those
yeah,
iconic
yeah.
moments.
He did the wedding. The picture of Diana in front of the Taj Mahal. All these kind of
Was that his? Was it?
yeah, all
Oh
these kind of
wow!
like iconic pictures. So it's a really good sort of. We did an exhibition, sort of been touring around the world, and it came to London for a few months last year, and it
Oh,
was
did it? Oh,
on
I missed it.
Diana, but it was also about her legacy. So had some of my pictures of the younger generation, right? So we could do like the comparison between his pictures, and so that was one. But I'd love to, it's sort of, I get asked quite a lot to do exhibition and potential books, and there's lots in the pipeline. I think it's just
Oh
waiting for
man,
the
you've
right
got to do it. Yeah, I mean, I'd
right
love that for
time.
me. I'd like to do an exhibition with all my DJ stuff
Yeah,
and all that from
yeah,
thing.
it'd
And
be amazing.
a
Yeah,
book would be great, but
yeah,
it's hard now. I mean, you've got with the royal stuff and what you've done is that. But I think books, there's not as many as when I used to start buying a lot of the
mm,
portfolio books in the 2000s and all that.
mm,
There's not as much. I think a lot's crowdfunded now and all that with a
yeah,
lot of the other photographers I know. But obviously, something with your body of work, even your
yeah,
dad's, would you do something that
yeah,
would be both together? Would you do
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
definitely.
book? Like I'd love to see that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people about it. I think it's just waiting for the right. I want to do it like
Wonga.
properly, yeah. But with the right time, that you know, you need to coincide it with like an anniversary
Yeah,
or kind, or something like that. That's a kind of landmark moment that you can sort of tie it in with. And I want to do it in the right place because I want it to be a book or exhibition that really shows off the pictures in like a proper sort of
yeah. Of
photo
course, a
book
proper coffee table, big
yeah,
old. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm sure we will do it. It's just
Good.
waiting for the right time and the right people to do it with.
So the last question we touched through at the beginning,
Mm,
your legacy, like your
hmm
dad's legacy, you've
mm,
taken and your dad's taken these historic photos, especially of the royal family, because obviously there's so much history in this country with everything. What are you going to just carry? It's hard when I say when you pass away,
yeah,
but
yeah.
your kids are going to inherit these, and or
Mm,
their kids, because some of these photos will be used for years and years,
mm,
and hundreds of years, because it's like with the history of this country, and
mm,
especially the royal family. So, have you? You sound like it will always be owned by your estate, sort of thing, and then it will just, you know what I mean. I'm just thinking that it will
yeah.
always be, there's a good, I'm not saying not just money, but just historical
Mm,
value of the imageries, if you know what I mean.
mm. I think that's one of the things I learned from my dad is just that, like, when you photograph the royals, you are photographing history, and
Yeah,
I could sort of see that pictures you take are gonna, especially the great images that you take are kind of historical documents that will be used for decades, who knows, even longer for to
probably,
come in
but
the
definitely
future.
longer, definitely longer. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
definitely think so.
yeah, but roles are, the historical. I mean, look at the Queen. I mean, such a
Yeah.
historical figure. Um, so
Well,
that's
Queen Victoria, there's hardly any photos of Queen Victoria, but can you
no,
imagine if there was back then?
yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
used for so much. We're lucky to live in an era where, I mean, look how we've advanced in 20, 30 years for photography. It's
yeah,
mental.
yeah. I mean, I would say, like when my dad was shooting, it was all, film. So, and there's very few pictures, even from something like Diana's wedding. Considering how many people were shooting that and stuff, there's actually relatively few pictures. Like he did the shot of Diana and Prince Charles, the kiss on the
Oh, wow.
on the balcony, but
Yeah.
it's actually very few pictures of
So
that now
so
because
you've
there
got
was
like a contact sheet and it's like 12 or
yeah.
something, is it like that?
Yeah, and other
Wow.
photographers were shooting for, might have been shooting for publication, and a lot of those images have sort of been lost. But
Yeah.
he's got a scan, and there weren't that many. If you try and look for images of that, there aren't that many pictures out there in the sort of public domain. So especially his time, I mean, like the film sort of pre-digital. I mean, those pictures there aren't as many now. It's a bit more saturated.
Well, you can be
You
trigger
get
happy as well.
yeah, yeah.
Like that, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah. But
exactly.
there
And
it's just
we're
like,
spoilt. Yeah.
imagine the pressure of
Oh,
film back then, mate.
oh,
Imagine it. Like,
I know.
oh my God, have I got the right settings? And
I
getting it back and
know.
going, oh shit, they're all
I
blown out or
know.
something. Oh my
I
God.
know. We're spoiled now with the cameras and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Especially
I mean,
mirrors.
it's yeah. I mean, it's good to know that those some of those pictures will be used for a long time to come, and because I own the copyright, you still get royalties coming in, and that was something that was important to my dad is that you could that is sort of something that would be great for, his children, and then for my children as well. I guess, hopefully they have a bit of money coming in, and you've got that kind of legacy for what you've been shooting, which would be nice after you've gone.
Retirement.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Sam, thanks so much. Right, let's go through some questions from listeners. I've got this one from Tess. It's, what's the most revealing human moment you've captured on a royal that's changed your approach to photography of public figures?
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things I've sort of developed over time, I guess, was sort of my style of shooting is I like to show, especially with the royals and high profile people, show like more of a human side to them, something a bit more relatable. You have like the kind of pomp and everything that goes with the royals, which is great, but I like to show them to be, human, something that we can all like identify with. And there's been a few times. One thing that really sort of springs to mind was like a few years ago. Was a picture of the Queen on Remembrance Day, and she's on the balcony, and you've got the sort of ceremony on Remembrance Sunday going in front of it. Yeah, and I was shooting quite tight portraits of the Queen, and look back at the pictures, and you can see a tear coming down
Looking
her
at
face.
it now, it's a fantastic image, mate.
And it's like, wow, that's really profound, to see somebody of the Queen's stature with, showing that kind of emotion. That's so incredibly unusual. You get a shot like that of the royals where where they express that emotion. I remember thinking, wow, that's like, and that picture did really well. And that was, I think it's times like that where you're thinking, well, this is really showing a lot. This is showing the human side. This is not just, royal. This is a human being. And in other ways where I've shown, I love my favorite shots probably of Kate is sort of her interaction with the kids, and where it shows that kind of, there's a really nice moment last, Troop in the Colour of Kate with Princess Charlotte, and it was Kate's first sort of proper engagement, first time we'd seen her since she'd been off with recovering from the cancer and stuff. And there's a shot of her with Princess Charlotte, and Princess Charlotte sort of turning around and just sort of looking up with her, and they're both looking at each other with a smile on their face, and it's just a moment, but it's just like a mother-daughter bond. And it just, in that moment, it's just like a daughter that's really proud of her mum, and a mum that is, looking over her daughter and really proud of her daughter, and just that bond is just captured in that little moment. So I think it's just little moments like that, which I love, getting pictures of the royals, and that's something I've developed over time. And I think that's something that I've become very good at sort of anticipating and capturing. But I think what really brought that home was that moment of the Queen with a tear in her eye. I was like, wow, yeah, that's
also a mic drop one as well, isn't it? Because you don't get that normally, showing her emotion.
No,
and I bet you looked at that and went, oh man,
been photographing for so many years, and she just sort of takes everything in her stride. Sort of amazing person. But to show that was really something.
This is a good one. If you could photograph any royal monarch in British history, who would it be? Obviously, if you had a camera, you can go back in time and shoot it, whatever. But
well, I mean, you talk about sort of Queen Victoria, going.
Got to be Henry VIII as well, isn't it?
Henry VIII. I mean,
that's for me. That would be,
I mean, you'll get some. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Henry VIII. It's just like. Can you imagine the pictures he would give you? Yeah.
My God. Yeah. It'd be brutal back then, though, mate.
Oh, yeah. I think you'd be taking a new picture every year with,
a different one. Yeah, your weddings would be well
wife.
busy.
Yeah.
and beheadings and things like that, yeah. I thought it'd be around. Victoria would be great as well, because she was such a massive monarch. But I mean, for me, it would be Henry VIII. But someone like that,
that would. that'd be something very different to what I photograph now.
It'd be very Game
I'm not.
of Thrones sort of thing, I can
Yeah,
imagine. Those sort of
yeah,
cold, sort of real,
yeah.
like, sort of stone stuff and everything.
Mind you, I wouldn't want to photograph him, in a bad light because God knows
No.
what would happen to me if he's not happy with the pictures.
Or Elizabeth the First would be
Yeah,
interesting as well, wouldn't
yeah,
she? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Because I always do like going back to like going to the National Portrait Gallery and looking at
yeah,
the. And sometimes you think, wow, can you imagine having a camera back then? Because
yeah,
obviously they're all beautifully, but everyone had bad
mm,
teeth and
yeah,
like she was had really bad skin, didn't she,
yeah,
Elizabeth I? It'd be I
yeah,
love no
yeah.
Photoshop.
Yeah, that would be a challenge. But
Yeah,
I mean, you go back, you see the paintings though, and the kind
yeah,
of the style of the paintings. Sort of very much like how we shoot portraits now with the lighting and
yeah,
stuff. So you
yeah. It
imagine
is. Yeah.
shooting portraits then would be quite something. Yeah.
Right, we've got. Let's do one more. Your favourite piece of kit lens.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I mean, I love I love the prime lenses, just because
The
prime
depth of
lenses.
field, isn't it, and everything? It just
It's
looks
the
lovely,
depth of
doesn't it?
field. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so depends what I'm shooting. I mean, I've got like an 85 mil, which I guess for like portraits is just
That
like
1.2.
1.2. Yeah, new
Yeah.
Nikon lens.
I've got
It's
the
just
50 1.2. It's just stunning,
yeah,
isn't it? Just
it's just
drops.
absolutely
Yeah.
stunning, and just you just have a subject, and even if you've got no lights or something, just with available light, and you just take them and just work with like a 50 or 85. Just the effect it gives
Yeah.
is amazing,
Just
and
make sure you get the eyes both in it.
exactly,
Just get the
yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
Just get one of
just
the
get it
eyes.
right, yeah,
Yeah. It's quite
exactly,
hard
and
sometimes where you get one and you look and you go, oh,
one of
no.
them's
It's.
slightly out,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to be
Yeah.
spot on, but when you do get it, it's
Yeah. It's
it's
beautiful, isn't
it's
it?
it's
Well, you
beautiful,
do
and
get the nose. The nose always drops, though, doesn't it? It's
yeah,
mostly you have to get the eyes in, but you will always lose the nose
the
slightly, won't you? Just
the eyes
because
is
of
the
the
key, I think.
yeah.
Everything else, and just the drop off you get with the rest of the head and
The
then the
rest,
background,
the ears sometimes go, don't they? You
yeah,
just get that front bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
But then the eyes really pop, and
yeah.
yeah, it's just a stunning. So I think a portrait lens, the 85, and I spoke about that lens, the 200 f2 for like film
Oh,
premieres
that's
and
lovely.
stuff.
Yeah,
And you don't really see other people using it, so you just get something a bit different, I think. And
yeah,
when it does work, a lot of my best pictures, red carpet pictures, have been taken, either from Cannes, or some of the images we've already spoken about have been taken with that lens. So that's really nice.
Sam, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. It's been so interesting. I've been really looking forward to this. It was just like, you see all your stuff online and you see it in the papers and Hello Magazine and all the other things, and it's really nice to get some story behind it.
No,
And
it's
I
been
really
a
appreciate
pleasure.
you coming on,
Thank you for having me
guys.
on.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. Go on, there'll be loads of links on here to subscribe to the podcast. Please leave reviews, everything. I'll put a link into Sam's site so you can see his work and his socials. Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Sam, thanks, mate.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye. Bye.